News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moskow.
Karen, we begin with the latest developments in the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has secured security cabinet approval for a military takeover of Gaza City. The Prime Minister says it's part of a final push to topple Hamas after 22 months of fighting and to recover Israel's last 50 hostages from Hamas. We get more from Bloomberg Israel Bureau Chief Ethan Bronner in Tel Aviv.
The prime minister has said repeatedly for many months that Israel must take over every square inch of Gaza in order to clear it of Hamas infrastructure and fighters and governing authority so that Hamas and Gaza will never be a threat again to Israel. So it's a very aggressive act, and we'll have to see where it goes. There are almost 1 million people living in Gaza City. The Israelis are going to forcibly evacuate them, to displace them, to go south. And at the same time, with the U.S., they're talking about stepping up in a big way the amount of food and aid that goes in order to take care of those people, at least in some minimal fashion.
Bloomberg's Ethan Bronner says most polls show Israelis prefer to see the war called off with Hamas intact, if that's the cost of recovering the hostages.
Now let's get to the latest on the war in Ukraine, Nathan. President Trump had given Russia until today to reach a truce or face economic penalties. Now the president says he's willing to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin with or without Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
It's going to be up to him. We're going to see what he has to say. It's going to be up to him. Very disappointed.
President Trump's Oval Office comments overrode a White House official who'd said earlier that Putin would need to agree to meet with Zelensky first. We get more with Bloomberg's Tony Halpin.
Well, in many ways, this is Russia's ideal scenario. They've long argued that the war in Ukraine isn't really against Ukraine, that it's against the US and NATO, and that it's being fought in Ukraine. And clearly, if they can demonstrate both to their people at home and in arguments abroad that they're sitting down with Trump to decide the war in Ukraine, that only strengthens their argument and strengthens their hand in claiming that they're really dealing with the West rather than having to confront the fact that they invaded Ukraine.
And that's Bloomberg's Tony Halpin. The Kremlin says the U.S. and Russia have agreed on a venue and hope to hold the talks next week.
Well, another major story we're following, Karen, involves the future of the Federal Reserve. President Trump has nominated Council of Economic Advisors Chairman Stephen Mnuchin to serve as a Fed governor. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports from Washington.
President Trump says Mnuchin, who will need to be confirmed by the Senate, would only serve the remaining term of Fed Governor Adriana Kugler, which expires in January. Mnuchin has been critical of the Fed's track record and says tariffs are not likely to cause inflation pressure.
We've now got several months of data, and again, there's just zero macroeconomically significant evidence of price pressures from tariffs.
Stephen Mnuchin in a conversation just hours before the president's announcement on Thursday with Balance of Power host Joe Matthew. That view puts him somewhat at odds with Powell. The Fed chair has said that while the base case is that tariffs' effects on inflation could be short-lived, Fed policymakers must guard against the alternative. In Washington, Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Amy, thank you. Well, gold trading near a record high this morning. Again, COMEX gold is at $34.91 an ounce. That's up more than 1.1%. The spike comes after the Financial Times first reported that bullion bars face U.S. tariffs. We get more with Bloomberg's senior editor, Bill Ferries.
It's one of these things that no one had on their bingo card, I think. FT reporting that gold bars at 1 kilogram, which are the most commonly traded form on the gold futures market, that those will also be subject to tariffs. And that was something I think traders, markets had really bet would not happen. That hit Switzerland hard. It's another blow for them. A lot of gold comes in and out of Switzerland.
And Bloomberg's Bill Ferries says the levy will add to troubles for Swiss President Karen Keller-Sutter after President Trump handed Switzerland the highest country tariff among developed nations. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moskow.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.